Welcome to my dungeon.
Welcome to Cauldron's Krypt. I'm your host, Master Cauldron. If you're new to the show, we use our combined 30 years of experience to dispel myths, get rid of stereotypes, and answer your questions about BDSM. You can call in at 865-268-4005 to leave your questions or visit the Krypt at cauldronskrypt.com. On this episode of the Krypt, we're going to get into BDSM on a budget. But first, hello, Funsize.
Hello, Cauldron.
How are you doing?
I'm well. How are you?
Oh, I'm doing really good. I've got to say that I love how you come up with this topic. My wife is a huge fan of Pinterest, and I guess what you were cruising around on there and found, as you call it, an infographic.
Yes. What happens when you first go on is you get pins, as they're called, or pictures, infographics, etc., that are suggested for the boards that you create. And this is something that came up as a suggestion for me.
Very cool. Very cool. Well, you know that I'm a big fan of Dom Depot and Pervertables. So this one kind of really gets up my alley because I love to build stuff anyway. So let's go ahead and hit those rules to love by and then jump into what we found. Of course, all the links that we're going to talk about that Funsize has pulled things from, you can find in the show notes at cauldronskrypt.com. And now those rules to love by. Rule number 1, safe, sane, consensual, and informed. Rule number 2, kinky, that's KNKI, from the Kinky app, available on all platforms. That stands for knowledge, no intolerance, kindness, and integrity. And rule number 3, that quote from Mr. Paul Young, submission is not about authority and it's not about obedience. It is all about relationships of love and respect. Beautiful words there that I wish I had written myself. I certainly couldn't say it any better than that. All right, so on into BDSM on a budget. Now, I think that's very important for all of us to really grasp the fullness of it, because most of the toys that I have and that I've used that have meant the most to me have been things that were very personally made by people that were not professionals, just random little things that you might find. So go ahead, get us started, and let's have this conversation.
Well, as we said, this was spurred on by an infographic that I had found talking about how to make things from your house into BDSM tools. And the biggest thing with that infographic that I had to dig into and do this episode for was that it suggested using household candles, which we've talked about before. You really can't do because they have a higher burning point and it will damage your partner or yourself. So other than that, it has some really great tips, and of course the link is included. Let's talk about the pervertables, though. I know this is a favorite for both of us. And this is items that you can convert or pervert for your play, which are traditionally not used in BDSM.
Yeah, paddles, one of my favorite things. In fact, I have recently sent you on Groupon. It was a laser-etched cutting board or serving tray. No. It got the logo on it and really pretty. I've actually ordered some more. Those are going to be for sale. You can contact me for that. I think I've going to have 10 available. So limited edition item, but one that I kept for myself. I have taken it and put bottle caps on the side that is not laser etched. Yeah, that's a little bit painful. That's what I would consider advanced paddling. Yeah. So what are some of these at-home paddles that you can use as pervertables? I'm sure you've got a lot of experience with this, both giving and receiving.
Yes, spatulas. Whether it's rubber or metal, it can be a lot of fun. The metal ones in particular, you can pop in your fridge for about 20 minutes. I say fridge, not freezer, because you don't want to experience frostbite on your regions that are going to be hit with this. But it can go into temperature play that way. You can also put it in a bowl of warm water to get it heated up, not to the point of burning, but just to the point where it's very warm and it can almost create a soothing sensation along with the actual impact. Hairbrushes, use the flat side as the paddle itself and use the other side, the one with the brush, bristles themselves for sensory play. Depending on the brush, you can do a lot with this. You can do light scratching. It's a very soft bristle. You can do all sorts of sensation play.
Very nice.
Rolled up magazines and newspapers, especially if you're getting into pet play. Yeah, it's a fun little prop disciplinary tool. And it actually does kind of hurt a bit, smart a bit. I'll say it smarts a bit if you get hit by a rolled up newspaper or magazine. And of course, everyone's favorite paint stirrer sticks, which you can get either for usually about 10 cents a pop, if not free, from your local hardware store.
Yeah, on those, I highly recommend going with the 5-gallon ones. Those are thicker and larger, and I will stack them together, hold 2 at a time. You can use some rubber bands around them if you like to keep them together, but it works pretty well for me. That way I have the option of easily pulling them apart, and I'll even turn them up on their sides, on the narrow side, and kind of play along because I'm a drummer, and we'll play along with music in the dungeon or whatever's going along, whatever's happening there, giving just a little bit different type of sensation, more of a massage feeling. I don't do that typically very hard on most people, but I hear it is an enjoyable sensation. Along with the rolled up magazines, newspapers, cardboard, because a thick cardboard box like from Amazon or something of that nature, I use that kind of frequently too. It seems to last a little bit longer. So I enjoy that. Is there any other kind of paddling pervertables that you can think of?
Not off the top of my head. Those are definitely the most common, but really you can use anything with a flat surface. Yeah,
I was trying to think of something else. It was a umbrella that somebody once used. One of the longer umbrellas. It wasn't one of the short ones, but apparently that created an interesting sensation because you've got all the soft padding from the cloth plus the metal rods that run through it. And if anybody wants to throw out some more of their favorite things to any of these, of course, we do have the group on FetLife, so feel free to go in there and post. I'm sure somebody will start a thread if Funsize or I don't do it ourselves. There may already be one. I'm not sure. So I want to take this next one because, as you know, flogging is one of my favorite things. Making a paracord flogger, there are some great places to find videos on that. YouTube, a lot of people that have their own independent sites where they make instructional videos will have them. And it's way cheaper than leather. And it's a decent material, and it's washable. You throw it into a lingerie bag, toss it in the washing machine. A lot of people use it for wax play, rope floggers or paracord to flog wax off of people. I absolutely love that. And if I'm not mistaken, you make those too, don't you?
I do, but I also do the leather, so
yeah,
it's kind of a mixture between the two.
Excellent. One that you have listed in here that I don't recall you telling me about that just sounds really cool is one from an old yoga mat.
I actually found it on Pinterest as well. It's actually pinned on one of my boards, and I will happily share it with anyone that wants to give it a try. I plan on trying it myself pretty soon. They took an old yoga mat that was in perfectly good condition, cut it down into strips, rolled it, tied it, put a handle on it. Ta-da, really heavy flogger.
Oh, that sounds cool.
It's really quite interesting, and I'm actually looking forward to trying it out pretty soon.
Yeah, that sounds like it'd be really heavy, like you said, and really thuddy. I'm pretty sure my wife has an old yoga mat laying around here that might disappear and get put in my toy box.
I definitely recommend asking her first. Cheap yoga mats do run around $15, and that's for the lowest possible price on most of them.
Oh, okay.
But they do run up to all the way to $90. So before you start cutting, double check that.
As with anything, ask before you cut.
Yes.
The last one on this short little list that we have for flogging fun, I've done several times. Strips of cloth. I have beaded it before, used both plastic and metal beads. And now I haven't really done much arranging into pretty little designs or anything like that, but that is a really cool little flogger that you can get a whole lot of sensation out of, depending on how you make it, what size beads you use. You can go from super thuddy to super stingy with the exact same toy, not having to worry about changing up, and really enjoy that one. Is that something that you have made yourself?
I have tons laying around.
Oh, cool. Okay. I need to make another one. I haven't done that in a while. Those are really fun. I love them. Anything on that one that you can think of? Anything else?
Mm-mm.
Because I have one that's just vicious.
Okay, go ahead and share it.
If you are a real sadist with a real heavy bottom and they have got to really enjoy it, using the screen piping for put like screen windows or screen doors, things of that nature. You can make floggers out of that, or old cords. Got a bunch of old computer cables and stuff like that. And I use different sizes, different gauges of these cables, a mixture of them. And with it though, I always fold them up because you don't want any of the wires sticking out, because that is not a good kind of pain for most people. So I highly advise that you use them doubled up if you're going to make it out of cords, or you can pull the wires out of them. I've done that too. That's a lot of fun.
So let's go ahead and talk about our other impact toys at home. Bamboo or wooden switches. I actually have a wooden switch at home for caning purposes. My husband picked it out. We sanded off any splinters because it was literally just a long 3-foot wooden dowel, picked up at a craft store for all of 80 cents, sanded it off, fastened a handle to it with electrical tape and some fabric that he liked. And it's actually a really good cane. It's just important to make sure there's no splinters and no cracking in the wood if you're going to do that.
Mm-hmm. Same thing with the paint sticks there. If you break them or anything wooden, make sure that you mind that. And some people, it's surprising, I only bring that up. It sounds obvious, but a lot of people for some reason just kind of, but it's my favorite toy or something, and they don't want to get rid of it or reform it, sand it down or whatever, and they'll use it on somebody, and then they ended up with a blood bonded toy completely accidentally.
Useless.
Yeah.
To others. Yeah. Useless to others at that point.
So what's next?
Next, I'm going to continue talking about these wooden switches. Because one of my very first experiences understanding how much I enjoyed pain came when I was a child, and I got caught out in a storm. And of course, where I live, the wind blows pretty horribly all year round. But I got stuck underneath a willow tree with its branches. Snapping at me, literally cutting my skin open. And if you have a tree like that outside your house, you can go off and cut off a switch and bring it in and use it as a toy. And it can really create a wonderful sensation. Just watch that there aren't any barbs sticking out from it. Remove any leaves. If you have a tree with thorns on it, obviously, make sure your partner can take the thorns or just remove them. Things like that.
Yeah.
And then you have a very ecological friendly toy at hand.
Oh, yeah. I like that. Now, on that one, I have learned, especially here in the South, where as a child, you're often told to go pick your own switch. A lot of people have an issue with switches or limbs, sticks, whatever people want to call them. So as with any toy, a word of caution, make sure that you have that one approved before you use it on someone, as you should already be doing.
Next on our list is actually one that my husband reminded me of just a few weeks ago. Wet towels or washcloth. We've all seen the movies where there'll be some guy in a locker room snapping some other guy's bottom with a towel. It stings quite a bit. My husband reminded me of this. Very fun thing. And then I've got another on here that he reminded me of through his own innovation. Leather gloves. You get fairly light impact, and then you can use them combined with a heavier toy, even using them for sensation play to stroke in between over the area. Same theory with the fur pelts that I know you like to carry.
Oh, yes.
You get a lot of sensation, a lot of differences.
Yeah.
So, very fun at-home toys.
On the wet towels, I consider that to be the original dragon tail.
That definitely makes sense.
And I do carry one in my toy box. So I don't use it as often as I should, though.
Well, you will certainly have to change that up now.
Yeah, absolutely. This next thing that we're getting into, pinchers, clamps, these types of things is something that I have recently gone back to. And go ahead and say what all is on this list and what you like to do with them.
Well, what I've got on the list is clothespins. They're wonderfully cheap. I know my local dollar store has packs of 100 for $1, and they're the traditional wooden kind. You can create all sorts of pretty zipper patterns with them. It gets a nice pinch. If they break, they're cheap.
Yeah.
So I love them for that. And honestly, if you put them on certain body parts and then tape them down, you can hold certain body parts spread apart, which is something I have a lot of personal experience in and I'm a big fan of. And then next on the list is chip bag clamps. A lot of times you can find the wider clamps, and like I was just saying, they are amazing for the lips. They can pinch and hold and also provide more surface area than, say, the clothespins do, so that it doesn't hurt as much, but it still holds things apart. So if you're looking to get into pinching, that's a pretty good way to start too. And then you can tape them as well. Lots of fun stuff to be done.
You're throwing a lot of that taping in there. You obviously do like that.
Nothing wrong with liking what I like. My kink is okay.
Nothing wrong at all. I'm not judging it. In fact, it's something that I recommend to anybody that hasn't tried it before. You never know. Yeah, you mentioned this already, but my excitement when we hit this section, the zippers, those are really cool. There's a woman that does a lot of instructional videos on YouTube, Morgan Thorne. I know you're familiar with her.
Huge fan. I have a huge crush and I will own it.
Yeah, she's a crazy Canuck. For those that don't know, that is a term of endearment from me, meaning that she is simply from Canada. And she does wonderful videos. Before we started recording this, I was actually watching the one that she has on the zipper, and she does a great job at providing information, detailed information on that. She goes over the safety information, the how-to, the implementation, and then any needed aftercare. And that's pretty much standard for her in any of her instructional videos. So if you haven't checked her out, I highly recommend it. Good information there. But those zippers, they're really cool, and they make just the coolest pretties. I love them. Mm-hmm. But it's not for everybody, so don't just assume that, oh, it's just a clothespin and it's going to be something easy to do and not going to be very painful. No, they can be very bitey. And the plastic clothespins, people think that because you can use like the chip bag holders, like you've already mentioned here, stay away from the plastic ones for the most part, especially if you're going to do a zipper on somebody, because those plastic ones typically have teeth on them and their bite is a whole lot stronger and meaner, and you will literally rip flesh off of somebody. So
I don't know what it is, but yeah, I think it's definitely more painful to use the plastic than the wood. So if you have a lighter bottom, do keep that in mind and definitely get the wood.
Yeah, absolutely. What do you think about the metal paper clips, the black ones that have the fold over little shiny wires on them? How do you like those? Have you ever used them?
I've used them on certain body parts. They're great. Obviously, the wider they are, the less painful it will usually be. Mm-hmm. But there are a couple brands out there that I don't know what goes on with them, but every single time I've used one or two brands of them, they have really, really gotten to me.
Yeah, I know.
For whatever reason, they're just stronger. You really have to work with them.
Yeah, I know what you're talking about. They, it's like they're a whole lot more rigid. They got a little bit less spring to them. I will usually take those and kind of put them up and then stick my thumb in there and hold it so that I can grip around it and kind of spread them a little bit extra, because, yeah, those can have a vicious, vicious bite.
What I know helps when I get the really vicious ones is, and of course this takes a lot of time, but I will put them on the edge of my desk, just clamp there. Mm-hmm. And if I leave them like that for a week or two, which is where the time comes from, they usually loosen up a little bit to the point where I can handle it.
Oh, cool.
But they're definitely, as you said, have a meaner bite than the wooden clothespins.
Yeah.
Or the chip clamp bags. So be very aware of how your bottom can handle sensation.
You know, on a side note, I just want to throw something out that just took place. Now, I'm always saying that I'm always personally trying to learn. And the whole desk thing, though to some people, it may seem like a little small thing that I just learned, but all these little small things add up. I never thought about that. And just a great opportunity to say, hey, even people who have been around for decades, if we listen and take the opportunity, we can continue growing and learning things. So thank you for my education today. I appreciate that.
You're welcome.
Won't be a wasted day since I've learned something. Moving on into sensory toys that you already have at home. What are you going to tell me about for sensory toys?
I'm going to tell you all about ice cubes for one thing. Relatively free, because pretty much everyone I've ever met has an ice cube tray in their house. It can be a 30-year-old ice cube tray. You pour water in it, stick it in the freezer, you got ice to play with. And that creates wonderful temperature play. And this is something we ghost over here because usually we end up talking about impact play, but temperature play, if you have not experienced this, please do give it a try, something, because it is definitely worth it. And playing with ice cubes and then combining it with a hot towel that just came out of the dryer, the cold and the hot together, you can watch your bottom squirm.
Even most tops I know like that. I mean, that's, if you enjoy getting out of a shower and into a hot towel, that's something that most people that I know enjoy. Or sheets straight out of the dryer. These are very vanilla things, but it's still a form of temperature play. And I don't think there's really much of a necessity on breaking or defining tops and bottoms for this type of stuff, which is why I love it so much, because anybody can do it. People can sit at home and have a scene all to themselves and just completely get lost in it for hours. Yes. I've known of people who've done it. I've texted them or messaged them and, oh, I'm sorry, I was playing with ice and I just kept putting things back in the dryer to heat them and grabbing more ice out of the tray or out of the bag. You know, if they're actually, this particular person was one that bought bagged ice. What else?
Safety pins. You can tape 3 or 4 together with the points open and a pencil as the handle and use them to trace over your partner's skin lightly for a scratching, almost Wartenberg wheel effect.
Ooh. Now that sounds like something that people should be really careful with, though.
They should be careful. You definitely don't want to stab it in unless your partner's into that kind of vast needle play, I guess we could call it. But it can definitely create a light scratching sensation that can be very enjoyable.
Yeah, and I know a lot of safety pins, manufacturers will make them out of different types of metal, and some of those metals aren't exactly healthy to insert into the body. So, yeah, I would watch that and also add the safety tip of if you make one of these and play with it, it not go into your toy box because it could end up as a fluid bonded toy, obviously. Sandpaper.
Sandpaper.
Freaking love sandpaper.
Abrasion play is not for everyone and should, of course, be approached carefully, but it is very interesting.
Yeah, I once saw somebody try to give another person a quote-unquote noogie with sandpaper. Effectively, they gave them a big bleeding bald spot.
Yes, yes, they would.
Using some very coarse grit sandpaper, it wasn't pretty. So a little common sense goes a long way with this one. How do you use it? Usually,
sandpaper gets swapped out with soft leather and furs for a light rubbing to switch up the sensation.
Yeah.
You know, one moment they'll be getting something soft and then the next they get sandpaper, and it's always quite interesting.
Now, I used to use a lot of sandpaper. I still do occasionally, but the reason that I use it less now, are you familiar with those plasti-dipped gripper gloves for like mechanics and things like that?
I've got a set myself.
I switched those out with sandpaper pretty much, or switched out the sandpaper for those because it's a very similar sensation and you've got the plasti dipped part, and then I usually buy the ones that have the very soft cotton on the back. So I can use both hands and have one hand palm down where it's the rough side and then the other hand palm up with the back of my hand against it with the soft cotton side, giving a wonderful sensation play to someone.
I actually have plans to make a pair of those gloves into vampire gloves. And for anyone that doesn't know, those are gloves that have pins stuck through them, creating sharp points. And I'm actually going to affix the tips of some medical grade lancets into a pair of them.
Oh, wow.
My own vampire gloves, and it's going to be wonderful, and I will definitely post pictures on FetLife for anyone that's interested in them.
Very cool. Are you using like tacks or staples or? I'm
literally getting lancet, the diabetic kind, for blood testing. The very short ones.
Oh, yeah.
And just going to work those through, cut off the plastic handle bit so that they're just stuck in.
Oh, okay.
And then push them through the gloves.
Cool. Very cool. Back scratchers. Back scratcher? Can't think of back scratchers without the...
Family Guy.
Yes, Family Guy. Back scratcher, back scratchers.
Yeah. Irish Dragon and I have two. One that's metal, one with wooden claws. Ironically, the metal one is actually called the Dragon's Talons.
Nice.
They're perfect for teasing and, of course, back scratching and just create some very wonderful moments.
That's one thing that I don't have in my toy box that I wish that I did. I'm going to have to fix that soon.
All right, so let's talk about spices, stings, and rice. You want to get started on this one?
Yes. Tabasco or other hot sauces. A lot of people have made the mistake of rubbing it in one's eye. I highly don't recommend that, or on any genitalia, but it can be used as a oil on the skin. That's something that I've done with it, but you want to make sure that it is washed off in an appropriate amount of time. Now, what that amount of time is going to vary to whatever brand, literally a brand of hot sauce that you're using. And of course, you can also just toss a little in somebody's mouth. That's always fun. Be very mindful of that, because in a heavily sexually charged scene, and I have to admit here, this is a mistake that I have made. You know where I'm going with this. A little Texas Pete. No, it was Frank's hot sauce as a punishment, and then almost instantly into oral, and that did not bode well for me. I'm just saying.
There's a scene in one of my all-time favorite movies, Apocalypto, in which a woman and a man decide to try spicing up their marriage bed, as it was. And, you know, if you don't understand why this isn't a good idea, what you're saying here, Colton, I definitely recommend going about 15 minutes in and taking a look at that scene, and you will instantly figure it out.
I'm going to have to check that out. I haven't seen that movie since it came out. Ginger. Now, we've talked about ginger. In fact, you gave a description of it, of figging, and I believe it was the last episode 131. If you want to see the show notes or listen to that one, just go to cauldronscript.com/131. But I know when it's peeled, it allows all those oils to come out, which when used for figging, this can last anywhere from 10 to 30 minutes. Typically, the 30-minute mark is my understanding. Like we talked about on that, I'm certainly not a bottom and would never consent to this, but I have recently met, as of last night met somebody who was talking about it that absolutely loved it. Thought that it was just an amazing punishment to receive. So, yeah, and was inquiring as to when and where this could take place. Not to me, but to a domain that he was speaking with, negotiating a nice little torture scene with her. In fact, it was an abduction type of scene. So very interesting to sit and listen to someone else negotiate. I was very thankful that they allowed me the opportunity to eavesdrop on them. Really cool. This next one I also mentioned briefly in that same episode as a comment to you. And this was kneeling on bags of rice. But there's other things that you can do with this. What is your experience with rice?
During my initial training, I was told to kneel on a 5-pound bag of uncooked rice until I learned my lesson, which was quite a while. Because I'm I was terribly stubborn in my younger years.
Now, of course, you are free to not answer this question, but given that I shared so much embarrassing personal information with the whole hot sauce thing, what exactly did you do to deserve such a punishment?
I yelled at my trainer that I didn't have to obey or submit. So my lesson to learn was the reason why I actually needed to submit for myself. So until I figured that out, I had to stay there. And yeah, it was about 14 hours straight.
Holy shnikes.
Yeah, but I learned my lesson, and I have yet to forget it.
And still such a brat. I'm amazed.
You are welcome.
Oh, wow. All right. Let's get into this next thing. If there's no more spices or... Oh, I know one spice that's not on your list. In fact, if I remember correctly, you're allergic to it?
Yes.
Cinnamon?
Cloves.
Or cloves. Yeah,
cloves is the one I'm allergic to.
Cloves and or cinnamon can also kind of have a Tabasco-like issue with the spice. You really need to take a whole lot of caution, though, when it comes to using the powdered spices. Inhaling those, or if you have somebody who is allergic, such as Funsize,
like
with
me.
cloves, I mean, you're talking about a very dire situation here.
Mm-hmm.
But they can be fun. I like to take cinnamon and make a paste out of it with a little water or even some hot sauce, something like that. I'll mix up a little paste and use that. That can be fun as well. Now, I spent several hours yesterday in Lowe's, which I also refer to as Dom Depot. I don't just call Home Depot Dom Depot because I prefer Lowe's for the most part. But there is so many things there that you can use as DIY projects. What kind of things do you have for us on this?
One of my favorite things to pick up, and I pick it up literally every time I go in, and I swear I grab a pack. Eyelet hooks, because I can screw them into pretty much any wooden piece of furniture or walls, etc. And suddenly I've got places to run my ropes through for bondage, and I love it.
Very nice. Very, very nice. And I know that you are a massive rope bunny, so it doesn't surprise me that that's one of the things that you go to. A lot of suspension things, dowel rods. In fact, within arm's reach of me, I have 2 dowel rods. One is a 6-foot with the very large eye hooks on it screwed into it, and the other one I cut down to a 3-foot, and both of them are used for spreader bars.
Yep.
Very cheap, very simple to do. All you need are the eye hooks, the dowel rods, and I forget the dimensions of these. I think they're 1.25 inches maybe. I don't recall, but they work, and they work well. You can even put the eyelets in them throughout I always put one on each end, one in the center, and then halfway between the center one and the ends of the rod, I'll put some there as well. So it gives you multiple positions, multiple tie points, I should say, that provides multiple positions to tie somebody up with. Love it. And you can use those that are strong enough, if you get the really thick ones, to use as implements involved in suspension. I wouldn't use it as the primary suspension point, but it can be used as a supporting suspension implement.
Speaking of suspension, you can go pick up the boards from there and build your own suspension frame that's freestanding. I know, for example, in my apartment, I couldn't exactly drill into the ceiling for suspension work, so I have to have freestanding, and I know there's a lot of people that live in similar situations.
Yeah.
And it literally costs maybe 1/10 of the cost of what you would find if you bought one from somebody, which they just go to Dom Depot themselves to build it anyway, so you might as well.
Yeah. Cheap plastic tablecloths and tarps, a roll of duct tape. Now, I know it sounds like we're setting up a Dexter kill room here, but it is great for protecting furniture, using if you're into water sports of any type, whether it's tap water or bodily fluids. I use the cheap shower curtains. You can go to the dollar store and get them literally for $1. I remember when Dollar General was the dollar store, but since they have things that cost a little bit more, I got to point out it is the Dollar Tree, but my wife come home with a pack or 4 packs of those not too long ago to use for wax play. So that's definitely cheap, and I don't like using tarps for it, even to lay down to protect the ground. It's pretty easy to knock holes in it because the massage table that I use is collapsible and it's a metal framed one. So yeah, I don't want to punch holes in it and then end up getting stuff in my rug or on my hardwood. So put down a shower curtain, and then I will wrap the table itself in a shower curtain and then put towels over it so it's soft, some old towels. So really good one there. And the next one is something, if I remember correctly, you told me about something a few months ago that you found at a thrift shop that I think that was you.
I do not believe so. It's been quite a while since I've been to a thrift shop.
Oh, never mind then.
But the point there is that if you don't have a piece of furniture that you're comfortable with modifying, or you don't feel quite up to building from scratch, you can check out your local thrift shops, and you can really find some amazing things for cheaper prices that also benefit your local community.
Absolutely. Now, the reason that I was in Dom Depot yesterday was buying a wooden sawhorse and an 8-foot 2x6, an 8-foot 2x4, couple of metal brackets, some thin, pretty wood to cover the outsides of it with, and then I'm going to go to probably Hobby Lobby or Walmart. I'll check prices around to buy some padding and some leather or faux leather covering for the arms and leg rests, and I'm sure you know where I'm going with this.
Mm-hmm.
A nice little spanking bench. But if you look online, if you Google pictures of spanking benches or spanking chairs, that's a lot of what you'll come up with. And these things sell for hundreds and in a few cases over $1,000. And it cost me $75. And I bought a couple of extra tools and things since I was there already and needed them. But by the time I get the padding, which is super cheap, and the covering that I'm going to use for it, throw either a coat of stain on it because I got wood that would look really pretty if it was stained, or a coat of paint on it, you're looking at about $100. I may end up posting a video of it on our YouTube channel. What do we have next coming up in this? Is there anything else that you can think of for this section?
No, I think it's just important that people explore what they have on hand and always be safe. You don't have to spend tons of money, and that's really what we're driving at, is you have a lot of things on hand that you can work on and do, whether you're a newbie or someone who's been in the lifestyle for decades the way we have. And there's lots of groups on FetLife too that have specifically DIY projects. So definitely take a look at what's around you.
Yeah, and I mean, if it's in my hand, pretty much I can use it. I hate my cell phone.
And don't forget that you have your hands.
Yes.
Don't forget that.
The number one pervertible out there that is also the number one most forgotten implement that almost everybody has. Unfortunately, there are those few people that don't. But do not forget your hands. But anything that I have in my hand, as long as I pay attention to what I'm doing and I have the consent of the person, I hate my cell phone. It's an older one. I'm not going to give the model of it. It's a little bit older, but I had one before it that worked great. Same model. I dropped it, broke it. Insurance sent me a new one. It's 10 times slower and just a pain. So I don't care what happens to it. And I used it yesterday to spank somebody with it. So, and apparently because of the case that I've got on it, it was a pretty stingy sensation. Anything can be a pervertible. I love them. It's a lot of fun being creative and coming up with your own thing. And I know from experience, and Funsize, you will probably attest to this, but anytime you walk into either a public or a private play space and the majority of somebody's toys are things that they have made, you know that you're looking at somebody who cares about what they're doing. Because they want to make specific toys for very specific sensations. And at first, it just comes out as kind of fun, but as your toy box grows and you start learning what does what and how things are going to feel, and you try something, you test it on yourself, and then you move on to a consenting partner, it's so much better. Because then you also get the pride of when somebody sees it and they say, oh, I love that. Can you make me one or whatever? Then it just increases it that much more. I love when a play partner will tell me that something that I've made is, oh, that felt amazing. Like, that's out of my own creativity, or I got that idea from somebody else, but I took the time to make it, to use it on them. So I really enjoy that. It's a big ego boost. Do you have any final thoughts?
No, I think we've covered it really well this week.
I think so. It's a pretty simple topic, but I think that we will get a lot of feedback on this one, and I hope so. We welcome it. And speaking of feedback, I do have a few final thoughts, not necessarily about this particular episode, but a few shout outs that I would like to give. Azaro, Princess Puddles, Mr. George, Miss Angel Eyes, Subtweet, IX Shell, Exquisite Kitten, Sweet Boy 138, Sir Mutual Respect, The Hatter, Rope Rob, Adam Riggs, Roxy Bear, Hippie Sunshine, J-Bum, Polaris 2040. All you guys have been messaging me along with a whole lot of other people, and I'm sorry if I didn't say your name. Just want to thank you guys for taking your time to message myself and Funsize and to leave comments in the FetLife group. You guys are awesome. And keep it up. We do respond to those when we get them, usually within minutes, but always within 24 hours. And we don't have anybody to do it for us. We do that personally. So if you have any questions or comments, feel free to contact Funsize or myself. The next thing to address, I would really love to thank our executive producer, Jeremiah, our senior producer, Matt, producers, Missy Lynn, and our junior producers, K2SO, The Accidental Trucker, and your husband, Funsize, Irish Mountain Dragon, is appreciating what we're doing here. So those are our junior producers, senior producers, and executives. And we could not do this without you. Because of you, we are going back to a weekly production schedule. We will get that kicked out here pretty soon. So thanks again. Also, I have to mention BDSMcontracts.org. Now, they don't give any financial support, but what they do is provide things for our listeners. And I've got to get in touch with Lily over there. She's absolutely amazing. And see if I can't get a few more of these contracts. They do 25-page soft and hardbound contracts for MS and DS relationships. If you want to check them out and you find something that you like, use the coupon code Cauldron20. That's KULDRIN20, and they'll give you a 20% discount off your purchase. That is about it. All right, so with that said, Funsize, go ahead and let the listeners know what we've got coming up next time here at the Krypt.
Next time, we are going to be doing our episode on BDSM and literature.
All right. So I look forward to hearing what you personally come up with on that, because out of the two of us, you are definitely the better read one. And I know that you've got a lot of information in store for us. So in the meantime, go to cauldronskrypt.com for show notes, how to subscribe information, and the link to our FetLife group so you can take part in the conversation and be eligible for the giveaways. While you're there, click on the Support Us tab to become a Patreon supporter so you can become one of our producers and help continue in the growth of what we do here and educating others. For the show notes on this episode, that will be at cauldronskrypt.com/133 Funsize. If anybody wants to email you directly, it is at
Funsize@cauldronskrypt.com.
And mine is sir@cauldronskrypt.com. This has been Master Cauldron and Funsize for cauldronskrypt.com. Unearth the truth.